stuck it out. We appreciate your presence. We are learning about the system as we go along, and so far we've done pretty well. And thanks, Henny, for your smooth picking up the pieces, and also Gert's in the background there. Thanks, Gert, for also helping us this morning. So just by way of introduction, some of you know Charles Mostert, Charles Philip Mostert. Charles has been in the mining business for something like 34 years. His background is that he's an accountant. He has a BCom and honors Bachelor of Commerce. He did a management development program at Anglo American, an MBL at UNISA, and a tax diploma at WITS. Following his mining career, he has now successfully transitioned into the renewable energy space, and he's going to talk about that this morning. Along the way, he's also been involved in what I would call the sort of junior mid-tier mining sector, both in Australia and here and elsewhere. He's had he's raised lots of money, had at least, I think, 19 successful IPOs. And his transition into renewables is very interesting and very pertinent from where we sit in South Africa, and has interesting applications, obviously, in the small, junior, mid-tier, and even big mining sector. So thanks, Charles. Thanks for making yourself available. Sorry for the little hiccup, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Super. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity this morning. I've actually gone through some of your newsletters, and it's a very, very interesting interest group that you've got. But without further ado, just a quick introduction on SunRanch. We are a registered and a turnkey EPC company. Regulation in the industry at the moment for renewable energy is very, very important. It's not fully regulated as yet. There's a lot of laws and bylaws that are being promulgated to this effect. Just from our side, as a turnkey EPC, we are registered with all the major banks in South Africa, besides FNB that we're busy with now. So we're accredited by Standard Bank, SASFin, Nedbank, ABSA, and Investec, member of the Green Building Council of South Africa, and also registered with Sapphire. Then, particularly as far as the Western Cape is concerned, we've also obtained our green card, which allows us in the Western Cape and the remainder of South Africa to do acknowledged solar installations. And then we're also a certified Tesla installer. Tesla does not have a major presence in South Africa, which is a great pity given the provenance of its founder. But yeah, we did go to the USA. Our technical guys did the Tesla exam, and we've done one or two Tesla installations in South Africa. Just turning to the next slide. We see currently in South Africa the dynamics of power, and that's really the presentation today. I think the renewable energy topic is as important as COVID, because it affects all our lives. And you know, in the background landscape behind this is Eskom, that currently has its own challenges. As a result of these challenges, we have seen a number of statements made by government. This was pre-COVID, and if you look to the right-hand side of the slide, Montash, in his opening speech at the Mining Indaba earlier this year, dropped a bombshell, which is very important for mining companies, in that mining companies can now, in South Africa, generate power for self-use, and they don't need a license for that. Now, that's very important, because NERSA licensing could take anything between 2 to 3 years. At the same time, you need Eskom approval, and it becomes a bureaucratic nightmare. NERSA will not give approval unless you've got Eskom approval. Eskom is reluctant to give approval unless you've got NERSA approval. So one finds yourself in a ding-dong between these two major parties. Unfortunately, COVID has handicapped this a bit. Montage has made the announcement, but to my knowledge, this has not been promulgated as yet, and hopefully, as we get over the COVID hurdle, we'll see this being enacted into law. But we are moving in the right direction as far as renewable energy is concerned. Just turning to the next slide. I hope is the next slide up? Slide 3.
Not yet.
Hello?
No.
Yeah, no,
There
so
it is.
Okay, there we go. Thanks. Thank you. The next slide really explains the business case for renewable energy. The graph that I've got here, the source for that is OUTA, the Organization Against Tax Abuse. I think everybody is very much familiar with OUTA, so this comes off their website. And here we see the Eskom price increases from 2008 to 2020. And we've had it, and this is per cents per kilowatt hour. And we've had an increase from around about 20 cents in 2008, the latest price just over R1. This equates to around about 530% increase over this period. And all of a sudden we find that in business, power has become a major issue. I remember in my years when we used to manage mining operations, it was all about labor, and labor constituted anything between 55 and 60% of total costs. And the whole focus was on training labor, making labor more productive, etc., etc. Power was around about 10%. All of a sudden, with this creep that we've seen here, we now find, and this is very, I'm generalizing, but we do find that power now costs anywhere between 25 to 30% of total costs. So it's crept up. It's like tax creep. Very few managers are aware of it. I presented to Sepaku Cement not too long ago, and I made the statement to the CEO that power in general is 25% of total costs. He didn't believe me. He called in the CFO. The CFO didn't know, so he had to go and get the numbers. I'm sitting in front of the CEO sweating because I know if I've made a misrepresentation, there goes the Sepaku business. Well, CFO came back to say that in the cement factories, power is now 20-25%. So that was a great relief for me in that presentation. Now, if we take a simple example, and please, I'm generalizing today because one has got to do a case study on each and every business enterprise. But if we can, through solar power, reduce a business's daytime costs by 50%, and we are achieving 50% very, very easy, and you'll see that later in the slides. And if power is 30% of your cost, then you're restating your cost base by 15%. And any business owner, any CEO would do a great job to shareholders if you can, on a permanent basis, reduce your cost by 15%, because that holds for the life of the solar system, which is guaranteed. It's got a supply guarantee of 25 years. Unfortunately, this graph does not tell the full story. And if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, we've seen some dramatic announcements in the past 2 months. Firstly, Eskom won the court case against NERSA for the 2018-2019 regulatory clearing account, and they were awarded an additional 13.3 billion rand. One of the energy experts in South Africa, Chris Yelland, has done a calculation to say that if this 13.3 billion is clawed back in the current year, the 1920 financial year, the Eskom price increase of 8.76%, which was announced on April 1, will in fact increase to 15%. My slide is now an old slide with regards to number 4, because Eskom did seek a judicial review on the previous years, pre-1819, and we've seen about 2-3 weeks ago an award of 63 billion rand has been made to Eskom. So NERSA has been found wanting by the courts. The new CEO of Eskom has made it very clear that they seek a 30% increase in total to become cost reflective. Now, with the 63%, depending on how that's going to claw back, but we could possibly be looking at 15% increases at least for the next 3 years. Against that, we've done about 71 solar installations now, so we've got a very good cost base in terms of capital costs and operating costs for these systems. We've done quite a varied number of installations, from mega ground installations to rooftop to carports, on grid tied, off grid. So the database is there. And if you turn back to the graph, you'll see there's a yellow bar, and that represents a standard solar installation that we do. So we are producing at around about 26 to 32 cents per kilowatt hour. Now I must caution this because I made the same statement in an interview with David Kramer, and the results that we got back were a lot of people actually criticized and questioned the 26 to 32 cents. So I want to make it very clear that this is for a low volt, in other words, below 500 kVA, grid-tied rooftop installation. And we've done many of them. The people that critiqued us in terms of our statement were totally correct in terms of mega solar parks, because here you move to medium volt and high volt. And the capital cost there could be anything between 40 cents to 70 cents. It really depends on the complexity of the installation. However, that increase in cost to 70 cents does not detract from the potential savings, because if you're doing a capital installation at 70 cents and Eskom costs are running at over R1, there is still a substantial margin to be had by going renewable. Our experience so far is only on solar installations, so I cannot quote with authority any numbers on other types of renewable energy solutions like wind, hydropower, geothermal, etc. We hope to move on to gas later on as the company grows. But that is the solar. So that is really the value proposition. We are so confident with these numbers that we underwrite the production performance of our systems. We give a 90% guarantee for production, which would translate into the savings. And the performance guarantee states that if we do not achieve a minimum of 90% performance, we upgrade the installation at our own cost. I'm going to move to the slides, and please, I don't mind if anybody has got a question on a particular slide. If you want to save your questions for later on, it's fine, but also please feel free to ask as we go along. I was advised by Annie and John that this is very informal as we go. Turning to the next slide. I'm going to ask Willem to cover this slide. A very interesting and a very attractive move by Eskom. It's called small scale embedded generation systems. Willem will take you through the definitions thereof. This is an offering by Eskom that was introduced earlier this year. It is a major departure from the tariff structures that we've seen in the past from Eskom. It is a very attractive offer. We've got 17 applications currently running, of which 5 have already been approved. So this is very topical, and it's red hot. But Willem, if you could just cover the key features of this, please.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Charles, and thanks for the opportunity as well for the presentation. As Charles mentioned, what Eskom announced earlier this year is the opening up of their network for LV connections. So specifically, this is more for your smaller scale solar installations. We have done our MV net metering installations as well. What we've seen with the MV, that's your medium bulk, your bigger systems net metering Eskom applications, is the timing that it takes to obtain approval from NERSA and Eskom, and also the cost involved. What Eskom did in return was they looked at the entire process, and they also said, listen, here for your small scale installations, we're opening up the LV system. So for your LV system, just a couple of requirements for the installation itself. So it is a maximum of a 350 kVA solar system. The solar system is benchmarked in terms of 75% of your notified maximum demand. So that is more or less the size of your transformer. So you can go up to a 500 kVA transformer. You are allowed to install a 350 kVA solar system. Now on the net metering aspect as well, what the net metering aspect involves is what we've seen is Eskom is opening up the grid for excess power to be pushed back into its network, and allowing the client to obtain credits for utilization of those credits at a later stage. So in fact, Eskom is acting as a battery bank. So you generate your electricity power as from the cost as in the previous slide at a much lower cost than you can purchase it from Eskom. Excess power gets fed back into the grid where you obtain your credits, where you can utilize it at a later stage. In the Eskom point, the tariff structure needs to be on a flex tariff structure. So either your mega flex, mini flex, rural flex, one of those tariff structures on a flex system. You can also do the application from Eskom. Eskom has significantly reduced the time frame and the cost for these applications. A standard application for the net metering on an LV site is here in the vicinity of 2,000 Rand. It automatically goes straight into budget quote. So you don't receive a cost estimate letter as, for instance, your MV processes. Straight to the budget quote that you receive within 60 days after you have paid your application fee, your initial application fees, you get your budget quote. Now, your difference in your budget quote all determines on what type of meters are currently installed. If you have your meters, for instance, already your smart meters installed, that's the ones that you will see that usually has the modem that's already connected to the distribution box of the Eskom side. Looking at an all-in Eskom cost of 20,000 Rand and between 60 to 80 days of Eskom approval and installation as well from date of start for the application. Should there be an older meter be installed, what we've seen is Eskom pushes up the cost here around about 40,000 Rand to come and install a new meter that can measure the power bilaterally in terms of excess power being pushed back and power being drawn in. The one major part also from this is a credit that Eskom provides. So Eskom doesn't pay out any money, but you will receive credits on your Eskom account. Other thing that's also quite nice in terms of this application, should you have more than one Eskom point located on the same area or on the same network line, you can electronically combine the Eskom points into one bill. You can install one solar PV system that credits can be offset against 2 or 3 more Eskom points of consumption as, for that year. Eskom has a 12-month period where you can build up credits as well. So for instance, should you utilize more power during your summer months or your winter months, it all depends, you can also then produce more power that's pushed up into credits that you can utilize at the later stage. Eskom's financial year is in March, so any excess credits that you have that you didn't utilize at the end of March, you unfortunately can't carry it over to the next year. So it's a month-to-month carryover for a 12-month financial year. What we've seen in the industry, and this is just in terms of designing these systems for net metering as well, either going to be on your LV application or on your MV application. Each and every client that we assist has unique power consumption. There's no cut and paste on our clients as well. Every client, we first obtain also their electricity consumption, what are their requirements, and what best suitable process we can follow, either with the LV, the MV application, that will have the quickest payback from in terms of your capital investment. I think from that side, I've covered the most highlights on your LV application system. And if Charles, do you have anything to add on that as well?
Yeah, Willem, thanks for that. Ladies and gentlemen, when we were in discussions with some of John Bristow's associates, some people made the very, very correct comment to say, oh, but Charles, it's not going to work for me in my alluvial operations because I move my plant around and your solar installation is a fixed installation, so it's not going to work for me. And we unfortunately don't have mobile solar plants except for very small plants that you can put into a container. But, whoops, something has happened there. John? Hello? Hello?
We can still see you, Charles. You just flip back into the sort of general PowerPoint view. Maybe you just want to go through that process to get full screen again. Okay, otherwise carry on. We can see slide 4.
Just give me a moment, John.
Okay.
Charles, just launch the slideshow from current slide.
Yeah, as soon as I do it, the drop, just be patient, just bear with me. I'm just trying to get it up again. No, I'm sorry, it's not working. Can everybody still see it, John?
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm mindful, I don't want to be kicked off the system now. So just with regards to mobile plant, solar systems will definitely not work where mining operations, like particularly the alluvial industry, where you consistently, move your operations. But any alluvial operation also has fixed plant, whether it's your final recovery or your crushing and milling circuit, your offices, etc. And this is still where the low volt offering from Eskom can work for alluvial miners. So it has got application in certain cases. Just with regards to services, we are qualified under low, medium, and high volt installations, and we'll show you a medium volt installation a bit later on. But prior to starting any design work for a solar solution, one of the things that we do is to analyze Eskom accounts. And unfortunately, we find not a great awareness in terms of Eskom tariff structures and how the Eskom charge is actually calculated. And I've got a case study here of a particular client. Obviously, I've blanked out the identity. But if you can follow the arrow, it's April 2000 account. The bill for this particular client is around about 122,000 a month. And when we started to analyze, so this is the first step in any design work. The client is on an Eskom tariff called Night Save. There's about 5-6 tariff structures in Eskom alone, just for non-local authorities. The notified demand of this client is 100 kVA. But as you can see from the graph down here on the right-hand bottom, this client is using double the amount of kVA as what he's got a connection point for. And the only reason that this particular system is not blowing up is that the transformer is 350. But because Eskom has only allowed a 100 kVA draw point, and he's using around about 200 to 250, he's paying him massive penalties. When we went back to this account, we found out that the penalties originated around about 2016, and his penalties for this excess usage is around about 200% a year. And when we advised the client of this, I think he was pretty horrified. So what we are going to do for the client here prior to any solar design is, one, have a rate change from night save to a flex tariff. If you recall, Willem did mention that the net metering offering, or we also call it energy banking, is only available to flex tariff. So we're going to change this from a night save tariff to a rural flex tariff, which would then qualify for net metering. Going to jump to the next slide. By making a tariff change for this client, he would have savings of around about 18,000 Rand a month. And that's a simple tariff change. The cost of the tariff change is not high, and that precedes any change to his system. So very simple value add that one can bring to the business. Going back to this, once we've made the rate change, we will then apply for net metering. We're also going to increase the notified demand so that the 200% penalties per annum will no longer apply. So we'll increase this to 300 kVA and then apply for a 200 net metering point, which will bring substantial savings over and above the 18,000. Well, all I can say, bottom line on this, very happy client. Immediately gave us the go-ahead to carry on with our work. So that's the first step in any solar design. What we do is an audit on power accounts, also an audit on the business operation of the client. If I can give maybe just an example to illustrate, a particular pick and pay operation had a massive spike in the mornings on maximum demand. And on analyzing it, we found that 8 ovens in the bakery, plus the staff coming into the kitchen and using microwaves and quite a number of kettles and toasters, etc., preparing breakfast. The bakery and the kitchen was running at the same time. So simple change in terms of starting off the bakery. Don't let it coincide with the staff preparing breakfast. That saved a huge amount of costs. A big hotel complex just behind Oliver Tambo Airport, actually a convention center. Also a massive spike. They've got 600 rooms in the hotel, so it's a big business. Big spike in the morning, and what happened there is that the kitchen preparing breakfast for X hundred number of customers coincided with the laundry. They do their own laundry. It was a simple solution by putting in an intelligent meter that would ensure that there's no power provided to the laundry during the kitchen breakfast hours in the morning, and a massive saving on their power bill, and that is prior to any further work on converting to clean energy. Move on from that one to medium volt. Willem can cover this. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've had to look up to now at the sort of small scale systems below 500 kilowatt, but we do large systems Willem will take you through here, but for example, in Zambia, we've done a pre-design for a 100 megawatt plant for First Quantum. I think, John, you can correct me, but First Quantum is the second or third largest copper producer in the world. They listed on multiple stock exchanges. We did the pre-design. Unfortunately, that did not progress. There was a fallout, of course, between First Quantum and the Zambian government. I believe that that's now been resolved, and hopefully we can get back on the First Quantum plant. And then Willem will also talk about a very interesting project that we're currently doing in Eswatini. Willem, if you maybe just quickly cover medium and high volt as well, please.
Perfect. Thanks, Charles. As Charles mentioned prior as well, every single client is different. So our approach to our clients is in terms of the requirements and the needs, and also what is the best payback system for the client. Now, we covered the LV side as well, and I'm going to focus just quickly on your medium volt size, and also then your bigger solar system as well. From an Eskom point of view, your medium volts takes around about 9 years, 9 months in terms of from application to approval as well. The difference between your medium volt and your low volt is also that your cost estimate letter, first of all, needs to be sent out before you go into your budget. We tend on your medium MV installations to try to keep our solar system under 1 megawatt in South Africa. The reason also for this is, if you should go over 1 megawatt, the regulations in terms of your NERSA approval becomes much more stringent. You need to obtain a NERSA license for plants bigger than 1 megawatt. Also from an EIA point of view, a 1 megawatt solar installation, you'll be able to install the system under 1 hectare. As soon as you go over 1 hectare, you will also require formal EIA approval. Now, to obtain your NERSA license and also your EIA approval for systems bigger than 1 megawatt, looking at a two-year process. So for our MV installations, we also looking at currently for your net metering applications, trying to keep the systems under 1 megawatt. As mentioned previously in the presentation as well, for self-consumption, this is now not for your net metering, it's for self-consumption of plants. As Mantashe also mentioned, there won't be any Eskom or NERSA registration for it as well. We're still waiting to get the final documentation out in terms of the legislation, how it would work in the mining industry. Should we install a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt for your self-consumption solar PV systems? I think in the next couple of months we will get more clarity on it for your larger scale systems without any NERSA license, but just registrations. So to sum it up more, is your LV connections, it takes you around about 60 days, 60 to 80 days. Your MV connections is at a bigger cost. You're looking at an Eskom cost of around about between 450 to 600,000 rand. And then also we try to keep it under 1 megawatt. It's a very lucrative statement that Mantashe made in terms of systems bigger than 1 megawatt for self-consumption. Then we're looking at our bigger mining operations of between 5 to 100 megawatt systems that can be installed for self-generation, and that we can get that entire process, also the clearance for it, under 1 year. So for my side, Charles, I think I covered all the aspects of the difference between LV, MV, and your bigger systems as well.
Thanks for that. Just with regards to the project that we've got in Eswatini, a very interesting spin-off benefit. This system will cover one of the main water canals. Swaziland agriculture is a major industry in Swaziland, so substantial number of water canals. This particular one, this photo is just for illustration, but the main south water canal runs for around about 30 kilometers. We're looking at a 30 megawatt solar installations where the panels will be placed over the canal, which has been zoned. And the spin-off for this is that the saving in water evaporation would approximate 30–35%. There's been a lot of scientific studies done on this, and the scientists who did the work quote a number of between 30 and 35% in water savings. So interesting benefit from that. Turning to our next slide.
Sorry, Charles, just one more point from my side on the systems and the design as well. On your LV and MV, so our systems under 1 meg with the Eskom net metering, from a financial point of view, we've seen an average, and this is now for your ground installations, that capital cost is a little bit higher than your rooftop installations. Looking at an average payback on these systems that we're trying to keep off here between 3 to 4 years. With the new interest rates cut that we've seen, we can get that down to 2 to 3 years. So that is our aim with the designs on the net metering side as well. Just from a financial point of view, the payback is anything between 2 to 4 years, where you will have recouped your initial investment, and then you will have your 25-year warranty on your solar PV plant as well.
Thank you, Willem. Turning to our next slide, we're moving to the end of our presentation. Henny, I hope I still have enough time to close off.
Carry on. Now you've got lots of time.
Thank you. Thanks. This, I think, is the second last slide. We also provide finance for our installations. This is obviously to clients who would financially qualify. We're in a partnership with a capital group called Evolution Capital Africa. They're based down in Cape Town. Their fund currently is building up towards a R1 billion. They have financed solar plants for a total of some 1.6 gigawatt at this stage. The lease terms are very, very favorable. We look at a 20-year lease of a plant, and the lease cost is an all-inclusive cost. In other words, all maintenance, all insurance, performance guarantees, the whole package becomes our responsibility and is included in the lease. Despite the prime rate in South Africa now having dropped to 7%, I mean, it's the cheapest money we've had in South Africa now for 45 years. Despite that, our lease terms are still very, very attractive. We're looking at an 8% increase a year, a 20% discount on current tariffs. So it is still very, very market competitive. In terms of our methodology of operation, should a client be interested, we give two options. We're not prescriptive. There may be other options as well. But the two main options that we have is first, given all the legalities and municipal and Eskom approvals and design work to be authorized and signed off by a competent electrical engineer, there's a lot of work that goes into a solar system. It's like any construction, any civil construction, any mine design. The complexity would be on par. Two options that we offer. Option B, we provide the customer with a quote for all this work. Customer pays us the electrical design, single line diagrams, subsidiary diagrams, municipal Eskom approvals. All of that is a package, and it becomes it's then an asset for the customer. Option A, on the other hand, what we offer is we would do all this work on risk and at our own cost. A typical 250, 300 kilowatt stock standard installation would cost us around about anywhere between 30 and 50,000 rand. Now, we're happy to take that on risk. As a quid pro quo, what we ask the client is a first right of refusal to match any competitive tender or quote of his choice. And if we are able to match a competitive tender, then we get the work. 99% of our clients select option A. they love us to be on risk. They love us to put our hands in our own money pockets. So that has attracted a lot of support. In closing, Wolf, all of this could obviously be pie in the sky if we haven't done it before. Here is one example, and we did send to Henny and John, selection of our track record of installations that we've done. But here's a very, very prime example. Wilcott Farm in Marydale, where we did an 802 kilowatt system. As William explained, we try and keep it below 1 megawatt because of costs for an EIA. Above 1 megawatt, you do a full EIA. Below 1 megawatt is a environmental scoping study at a fraction of the cost. Also, the regulatory approvals distinguishing for below 1 megawatt to above 1 megawatt. There's a big difference in the processes to be followed. Interesting study. This Wilcott Farm is a cotton farmer. They have a massive cotton mill on site that does toll milling for farmers in the area. The mill operates for around about 3 months in the year. That is their busy harvesting season. The other 9 months they prepare for the next season. So 3 months of very high usage of power, 9 months of very low demand. Being a net metering medium volt system, we got NERSA and Eskom approval. I believe we're the second group in the country to have been awarded a private NERSA license to push all the surplus power back into the grid. Means for 9 months, the plant is generating a significant amount of excess power, goes back into the grid, and that is then utilized during the 3 months when you've got this very, very high demand. The farmer, Maria, got his first credit August, September last year, 480,000 Rand for the month. Very, very happy client. We've moved on to another offering for him now, which I'd actually forgotten about, and that is carbon credits. As you know, the legislation in South Africa has been enacted. It hasn't kicked in, and I think it's only because of what the country is currently going through. But there is quite an established market for carbon credits, and for this particular client, we are now in negotiations to buy carbon credits from him at around about 30 Rand per unit. So it's just an add-on to the whole renewable offering. And this one, as you can see, the medium volt connection to Eskom, we built it ourselves. Eskom did the switch over to the main substation, but all of this was done under the technical audit and control of Eskom. But that was done by ourselves. I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity. And Henny, John, back to you.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, we'll open up to discussion. I'll just get the discussion going. Thanks, Charles. And I think the first thing you've done is you've got people running to check their Eskom accounts or their local municipal accounts. So if nothing else, you might well save people a bunch of rands. And so thanks for that sort of wise suggestion as well. Charles, just to sort of put it in perspective, or give me some perspective, going from your low voltage, I mean, for example, a house installation these days, what does that cost? All inclusive, is it 100,000 or 200,000? And then, for example,
sorry, John. Yeah. Sorry.
Go for it, Willem.
Thanks, John. What we've seen in the residential market is actually much more complicated than the commercial market. The main reason for that is when you talk about your houses is every single person's house is different in terms of electrical consumption. What we're trying to do
Yeah.
in the residential areas for people, first of all, to understand their own electrical usage. So, for instance, you've got a pool pump, you've got a koi dam, do you have electrical geysers or is it solar geysers? So, from a house point of view, I would say, as a nice ballpark figure, to run your essential load, and your essential loads will be, for instance, your lights, your fridges, your TV, your Wi-Fi, etc. For a nice 6-hour period, you're looking at in a vicinity of 100 to 140,000 Rand for a nice hybrid solar solution. You also tend to get these packages that they're currently offering, these blue, yellow, and pink packages for 60,000 Rand, but that is an off-grid package. So an off-grid package means that the solar system or the battery bank will only kick in once there is load shedding. So you won't see any additional savings on your monthly bill because it's an off-grid inverter. So that's why we tend to utilize hybrid inverters. So you also see savings on your electrical bill on a monthly basis, and also you will have your backup system should there be any load shedding as well. The main difference also between the solar or from your residential to your commercial will be much more focused on your savings part, whereas residential people tend to say also, I would pay the battery prices are more expensive than your current grid utility prices as well. But to have power during load shedding, I mean, then you can't compare those figures as well. So it's not just from a savings point of view, but it's also from a luxury point of view. You have 4 or 5 hours load shedding, you will have power and you can carry on with your work.
Fantastic. Okay, that just gives us perspective. And then let's just take it to the other end. So your system that Charles showed at the end, Charles, I mean, effectively that could be a small, fisher mine. You're talking about 850. And there we don't want any secrets, but round figure, full package installed, working. How many million are we looking at?
Yeah. John, I'll have to quote a range per kilowatt, and then people can look at their own account. They'll know what the kilowatt usage is. The target in South Africa to be competitive is around about 15,000 to 20,000 Rand per kilowatt. Now, why that range is so broad, it really depends on the grid connection, the closest substation, whether it's going to include overhead lines, the types of transformers that one has got to use. But as a guideline, 15,000 to 20,000 Rand per kilowatt. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Opa, Gordon Tunet has a question. But he hasn't got his headphone on, so we're going to punish him and ask somebody else to put a question. There we go. Still can't hear you, Gordon.
Gerard, should hear me now.
There we go.
Can
Fire
I share
away.
screen and a couple of images and then lead into a little bit of discussion which builds on what you've been saying?
Why not?
Share screen. Come now. Why? You need to make me a co-host. Okay, there we go. Right, so I hope you're seeing Cottage. Can you see a cottage with 36 panels?
Yes, we can see that.
That feeds then via a 10 kilowatt three-phase inverter into 2 supercapacitors. I chose supercapacitors rather than lithium-ion or lead-acid batteries. We'll see how that works out in the big scheme of things. In the licensing process, despite this inverter having an electronic no feedback prevention built-in device, the City Council wanted redundancy. So I had to fit this box, which I'm circling now. I'm not sure if you can see the circling. That is in fact 2 contactors that are interlinked and mechanically isolate my system from the municipal power system. The next part of it is I'm going to draw across a graph. And this is from February the 9th last year when my system went live. And really just concentrate on the orange line. That really is telling me that for the first couple of months, summer months from February through until May, my generation and my consumption was more or less equal. During the winter months, I needed to buy electricity from the council. And from the summer months right the way through until May this year, I was pretty much horizontal and pretty much in balance with my 36 panels generating what I needed to use. And subsequent to that, up till now, I'm using more municipal power than I'm generating. And that's reflected here in the blue graphs, indicates that I'm not generating enough during the winter months. It's not a cheap option. Supercapacitors are quite expensive, but they're pretty good. The system is instantaneous flick over when there's a power outage. And I have measured my voltage when Eskom is down and there's nothing feeding back. And I have now received licensing, although they still have to come and change my meter. The licensing process is onerous under the City of Cape Town. It is dreadfully onerous. And had I known this, I probably would not have put solar panels up. Probably would have done something different. But nonetheless, it has reduced my electricity bill of the order of 3,000 Rand a month at the moment. So that leads into a discussion on licensing, because the licensing can be a complete mission.
Okay. Are you running a workshop there, Gordon, or just a house?
Oh, there's a workshop underneath this where I've got a couple of tractors and a couple of old jalopies.
Okay. All right. Discussion, feedback, Charles. Any comments, or Willem?
We've also seen in our fully eco sentiments as well, the license. I must also say the Western, from a municipal point of sight, that actually has got processes that we can follow in terms of your licensing to push back electricity. We've done now a couple of installations in the George area, not on residential, on your commercial side, and we're also seeing the same thing. It's quite an onerous timing consumption in terms of for your licensing. It took us around about 2 months to get the licensing from George. But also it's new systems that are being implemented. We started in George a year and a half ago, where Cape Town actually also brought out their new policies and also their new regulations. So for everybody just to get their feet, talking about the inverters as well. If you install in the Western Cape, they've got their list of certified inverters that can be installed, and only those inverters can be that are accredited by the municipality are allowed to obtain a license. So there's a lot of, I think, learning work from both sides, the installer side and also from your regulated point of view, that are trying to get the processes more streamlined to get the licensing out much more quicker. From the contactors and from the feedback switch, that's also more from the protection side from the municipality itself. The problem that you have is also from a generator point of view. As soon as you install a generator at your house or your business premises, it needs to have a physical cutoff switch from the grid as soon as there is load shedding. The reason for that is the system can't realize if it's load shedding or maintenance. So if it's maintenance, then they switch off the grid and you push back electricity into the grid. You're making the grid live again. That's where there needs to be a physical break switch from when the power is off, so that you run independently and that there's no risk for you to push back electricity onto the grid. So that's for that safety reasons as well, from the legislation point of view, where they're trying to bring out the safety procedures for these systems to be installed. So that everybody that's on the grids is also more on a safe position, so that nobody's injured during your routine operations and maintenance on these grid networks.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. The City of Cape Town want redundancy on those systems. They don't only want the inverter to sense whether there's a load shedding or a break in incoming power and then automatically change over and prevent feedback, but they also want mechanical separation. Now that leads on to the next part of the discussion. That was just before lockdown, I attended a meeting with Alan Windy, James Foss, and a couple of other DA bigwigs on a meeting aimed to make the Western Cape less reliant on Eskom power going forward, both on the large scale, medium scale, and in our case, small scale. There were a number of people who stood up at the meeting and said that they had done very extensive studies to put gas-fired generating facilities in Saldanha. They'd done wave studies, wind studies, all of those things, and spent, I think, in the order of 680,000 euros to prepare reports for this, which were submitted via the then ANC-controlled city of Cape Town, and everything fell flat. Alan Windy undertook to revisit all of that and meet with central government on large-scale power generation, baseload in other words. But he made the very valid point that as far as Western Cape government was concerned, he wanted to support small scale, the type of thing that I've done. And he gave a figure that he wanted to subsidize it to the tune of 86,000 Rand per installation, and to have the cost of the metering device, in other words, the smart meter, borne by either City of Cape Town or the Western Province government. Of course, lockdown then happened, and although my efforts to contact him have been marginally successful, there's been no movement on those particular items. But it is interesting that they are encouraging small scale, medium scale, and large scale generation, renewable in particular, but also baseload in the Western Cape. And if you want to together make an effort to contact Windy and let's try and pick up this ball, which I think is timely, then I'm happy to do so.
Thanks, Charles. Interesting. The
Yeah.
Republic of
What assists us, just picking up, sorry, John, just picking up from Gordon, is that we do find significant requirements from municipalities across the country. Here in the Gauteng area, I think the procedures are certainly more lenient than the Western Cape. What does assist us in the Western Cape is, one, we have a green card, and it's an absolute requirement in the Cape Province to have green card certification. Secondly, is that we work with the municipality from day one. For an installation, we would approach the municipality and obtain their solar installation specifications. And most municipalities, particularly your larger ones, have got these specifications, and they differ, as Gordon has pointed out, from province to province. We then make 100% sure that our design work complies with the specifications. So it's working, with the authorities, showing them that the design complies with their specifications, and that makes it a little bit easier when you start off the process. So there's a lot of hard work that goes in at the start, but then the installation itself and the commissioning, etc., tends to go easier. Western Cape is pretty, the thinking is way ahead from what we found if we compare against the country. Areas such like Drakenstein, they do buyback for small scale house installations. The application process does take a while, but yeah, Drakenstein that we've come across does net metering, so does George. So very, very advanced thinking from the city fathers in that regard.
Great. Jock Harmer, are you sort of online? You had some comments and had some, or had done some work on other related systems? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I just had my mic muted.
Okay. Is Eskom not working this morning?
Yes. Yeah, it's sort of very appropriate. I'm sitting here at a power down in Kenton. Yeah, it's a local thing. That's something was arcing, so we've been off all morning. So
Okay.
I just hope the modem backup is going to last. So yeah, really interesting. We're sort of running over time, but I put a few slides together just to take this sort of discussion on a fairly slightly broader sense, just to look at other solar installations that have gone in on a more sort of regional or countrywide scale. I'm not sure if there's time for that now.
But maybe just walk us through them quickly, Charles. Sorry, Jock, talk to them, and then we'll definitely, the discussion and the interest is great. We'll set up a sort of panel discussion with Charles and yourself and a few others. Gordon can and take it further. But given the time frame, perhaps just walk us through it verbally. If you guys are happy, Charles, go for it.
Just verbally without the slides.
Whatever works for you. Put up. Are you ready with the slides?
Okay, I'll just whip through a few. Maybe if I can share a screen here.
Benny?
Yes, sure. You can. You must just do a share screen. It's fine.
Okay, you seeing that?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Just a point I want to make: when you start talking about green energy and stuff, often people think it's would be nice, and is it really the way to go? Can we actually do that? And there are a lot of skeptics out there. Donald Trump's the biggest one. But what really struck me when I was doing some research on this is from Bloomberg New Energy Financing. These are the 2020, the most recent one. And this is the investment in clean energy. And you'll see that for the last 2011 to 2019, the new investment in clean energy is about 300 billion on average per year, every year. So a lot of money is going into that. Put that into perspective, if we look at venture capital and these investment things, all of the top, this is in 2017, are green energy investments. Market deals, 4 out of the top 5 green energy, okay? And this one here, obviously Tesla with the electrified vehicles. So a lot of money is going into it. If you just compare that to, say, the resource game, in 2016, 2017, the total on the TSX is about 0.9 to 1.9, so 2 billion as opposed to 300 billion. So there's a lot of money going into this. This is sort of fairly real stuff. So I'll skip through these. This is just to put into perspective the size of what Eskom's generating capacity is. Well, supposedly net output of about 335 gigawatts would be the target to replace things. And that equates to 230 terawatt hours if you want to go in the thing. And the big black mess there is all the coal aspect. So just skip past that. But there are a couple of studies that showing that in South Africa, we have the potential to generate electricity by greener renewables, whatever methods. There's 2 major studies I came across, and what Charles brought out as well is the reason that this became more and more viable is because of the rapid decrease in cost of these technologies. There's quite interesting maps here just showing the potential, generating potential in kilowatt hours per square meter, the solar potential and the wind potential, okay? And you'll see this big area up here has massive solar potential for obvious reasons. And the wind potential is quite interesting along all the escarpments and so on. And so that's just, we can look at wind as well. This is the South Africa's current wind capacity versus the other countries in Africa. And you see we're the biggest player. These are all the different farms with their generating capacities. And these are all the ones in the Eastern Cape. And if you add those up, those are higher than any other country in Africa. So we've got a lot going here. And the important thing with wind is the way it's generated. Basically, you the amount of energy, electricity you generate is how fast you can spin the armature. So if you can't spin the armature very quickly, then you need to have very strong battery magnets in order to generate the same amount of electricity. And so this is where these rare earth magnets come in. This is just a little diagram here showing for the same magnetic strength, that's the size of the magnets. And so these ones here are very powerful, very small, these neodymium ion magnets. We don't want to get into any too much detail, but this is what has been a bit of a stranglehold on the further deployment of these wind generators. And it just shows you this is the kilograms of actual magnets required in these different styles. So in these low speed ones, direct drive, you generate a hell of a lot more power with a smaller amount of revolution. So I just want to skip through it quickly. This is the Jeffreys Bay one, and you see they're using geared generators. Here's a good one I'm seeing with the listenership is largely diamond based. This is a direct drive. You'll see it's a huge thing. That's a guy standing on top for scale, and this is a Divec in Canada. So these things rotate very low speed but generate a large amount of power. And just to put those sort of things into perspective, here's some stats from the Global Wind Energy Council. It takes the wind turbines 3 to 6 months to recoup the energy required to set it up and run it for 20 to 25 years, including the recycling. So the payback in energy terms is really fast. This, I think, is as important to us here is the massive saving in water that using these technologies bring. And I think this is a feature I haven't seen commented on much. It's not just on the carbon savings. So we go to the alternative. There's the solar. He's given us a big. Charles given us a big run through on the photovoltaic stuff, but I just want to shed a little bit of a light on the alternative one, which is these CSPs, these concentrating solar power. This is just I won't go into that. We've been through that. So the concentrating solar power plants, unlike the stuff that Charles was talking about using the photovoltaics, this captures the heat itself from the sun. And this is a deployment in Ouarzazate in Morocco, a massive 950 megawatt hybrid solar plant. So essentially what the game is here is to focus the heat on a medium that'll store it and use that heat to then generate steam and run a generator. So there are two types of these things. Quickly, there's what they call a power tower, which I think is a nice term, where you have heliostats or parabolic mirrors that focus the heat of the sun on a spot that melts salt, and the heat in the salt is used to generate steam. Okay. Sorry, the power's just come on, so there's buzzing going on in the background here. So this is just schematically how it works. The heliostats focus it on where the salt is, that melts, and these are sort of the temperatures here. The hot salt is getting up to close to 600 degrees centigrade. That has gone through a heat exchanger to generate steam, and that generates your electricity. So here's an example of one in, I think this is one in, I can't remember where it is now. So there's your tower. These things are reflecting onto that, and you can see the heat radiating back out of that. There's one in South Africa. This was one of the first ones employed in Uppington. And here's a close-up of the tower. This has been operating for the last few years, and that's where the salt will sit and melt. And these sorts of initial units were real-time, if you like. You shine the sun on the salt melts, generates heat. You use that to generate steam, so and generate electricity. So as long as the salt stays hot, you generate electricity. The alternative one is a parabolic trough, where instead of having the central tower, you reflect the light onto a pipe that has the heat medium in it, and you use that to create steam, etc., etc. These are what these things look like, and you'll see, so along there is where the heat is focused. There's an oil medium in there that absorbs that, and you pipe the oil out to the central facility where you exchange it, create the steam, etc., etc. And here's an example near Pofara, the Kaku Solar 1. Here are big banks of these parabolic reflectors feeding into a central generating facility. Okay. And recently, though, this company, Sena, has taken some of the static type of implementation of this technology and saying, well, where we store the heat is in the salt. So if we increase the amount of salt storage, okay, these things lose heat very slowly. We can extend the amount of generating time when the sun's not there. Okay, so you can sort of read that step here. And this is a way of explaining how it is. This is a real one of the plants that the company had in operation. So here's time of day. The yellow here is basically the heat of the sun. So you see the sun comes up, it gets hot. When there's clouds around, it's there and then it's not. Okay, so that's the amount of sun energy that's coming in. Okay, and this blue line here is the energy collection from that sun. Okay, so it follows the heat of the sun. But here, this is the generation. So what you do is the sun comes up, you heat your salt, the salt melts, and you store the heat, but you don't start generating electricity. You just keep heating and melting more salt. So you don't need to generate electricity when you don't need it. You switch it on, and basically you can then generate and use that stored heat beyond time of the sunset through the night. Okay, so that's schematically how it works, and this is now being implemented.
Wrapping it up, Joe.
Yeah, sorry.
Out of time.
Yeah, sure. This is being implemented in South Africa at the moment, and here these essentially the difference is these big storage tanks. So this is in Bokport that has 9 hours of heat storage capability in those tanks. All right, and this is under construction, and it'll be online in 2022, which has 12 hours of molten salt storage. In other words, it can generate 24 hours. This is a major breakthrough, I think. And these are all the plants that are actually, only one is still waiting. These are they're functioning at the moment. And what I just draw your attention to is the cost of each of these things, okay? And none of this is government money. This is built by people investing. In other words, there's money in electricity. I'm sure Charles will agree. So this is more or less where this was a few years ago. We were down here at 200. And so we're going to head up to about 600 megawatts of generating power by CSP. So becoming quite a big player. And the attractive thing is that this is the cutting edge technology we're putting in place. Okay, these are just teasers. We could spend many hours boring you with this, but not everyone's a believer. There's a quote there from dear old Donald.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion, Jock. I mean, that's useful stuff, and we certainly need another discussion on this. Thanks. Charles, any feedback? And then my question is base load. Is that stuff getting sort of to be able to provide, real base load for industry and mines? Charles?
Yeah.
I think, John, a very, very interesting presentation. Obviously, the benefit of CSP as opposed to solar is the generation of power after hours. Yeah. So mega benefit there. So with regards to the stability of the national grid, many of these technologies add to instability of the grid, and that's why we still need a nuclear or coal-fired or any generation that can produce stability and that is not influenced by clouds and climate. But yeah, you see, very, very interesting presentations. Thank you very much.
Okay, so
I think the key issue is, the thing that would unlock this is the storage aspects and the development of these big vanadium redox batteries, where you can then have, you don't have one mega national grid, you have it distributed around, and they feed, in other words, they're different grids, even on a provincial level, feeding into a central type of thing. Concept.
Well, let's start wrapping up, and that takes me to my last question, Charles. You mentioned Tesla, and Tesla put in a big system in South Australia, which you hear mixed reports about. Last comment on Tesla?
Yeah, John. Unfortunately, we still keep our relationship with Tesla because of their battery technology, and they're developing batteries in excess of 50, 80 megawatts. So they are running, I believe, a pilot plant with Eskom. But there's another South African local company which you guys may just want to Google. It's called Bushveld Minerals. Bushveld Minerals has got a subsidiary called Bushveld Energy. It's vanadium oxide technology. We've been to their sites. They're doing some pilot work with Eskom up in the Kruger Park, and developing large-scale battery systems. And that's local. It's Russian technology or Russian scientists, but a local company. Okay.
And just a comment, have you got any feedback on the system that was installed in South Australia, the big battery system?
If I remember correctly, that's a copper mine. I forgot the name of it now. I'm being told, well, it's off-grid. There's no grid power in the area. So their backup is still diesel generation, because for any solar plant, you do need a backup system. Otherwise, the solar plant won't work. But from what I hear, it's totally off-grid and working very well.
Okay. All right.
John, time for a quick question, Gert. One of the big issues around base power is that it all comes from the north and feeds the coastal areas along the long transmission lines. You mentioned that you're possibly going into gas. Are you considering installing base load power stations gas-fired along the coast?
Yeah, these would be gas-operated plants, and they would be very site-specific, obviously linking into the grid again. So, if one does get appropriate sites, they can be done. I think particularly where the need is right now is on the west coast, given the offshore exploration for gas to replace the Moss gas area. So a huge investment being pumped into offshore exploration. And the challenge now is what do you do with landed gas? So that's where the focus is. Some gas storage and gas generation onshore on the western shore.
Well, there's a lot of gas in Mozambique. That surely can be used from Durban southwards.
Absolutely. Sasol is very much involved in that. Unfortunately, the Mozambique story has also been tainted with
corruption.
A lot of fraudulent activities. But yeah, Mozambique has got also phenomenal gas fields.
Okay, any other questions, comments, ladies and gents?
I was just wanting to chip in on the gas side. So that's Ibubisi and Kudu on the west coast. And then I'll tell you about Karoo shale gas in a couple of weeks. So that's a whole story on its own. And that is perfect for solar plant backup. I can't wait to share that story with everyone. So Karoo fracking and everything going with that. Let's wait.
Okay, book your seats. What are you offering as sort of costs to turn up for the show, Jean? Right.
No, I'm talking from Leeds in England, so the distance is far away enough, guys.
Okay, thanks, Charles. That was fantastic, and Willem, really.
The farmers will get to you before that, John.
Right, thanks, Gordon. But thanks, Charles. That was really fascinating, and clearly there's room for further discussion. Thanks, Willem. and we really appreciate your time and effort. Thanks also, Jock, for your contribution, an important part of this evolving landscape. And, do we think Eskom will survive, I guess, is the $1 million question. Thanks, John, and thanks everyone else for their questions and inputs. And sorry about the little hiccup that we had at the start, but thanks again, Henny, for seeing us through that, and equally Gert for staying with us there as well. Okay, thanks everyone. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much.
Charles, good to see you.
There will be a recording on the cloud for a couple of days, and then it will be on YouTube after that.
Leon, you wanted to say cheers to Charles?
Yes, I would like to say it's good to see you, Charles. Most fascinating stuff, and I would like to discuss so many things with you regarding this. Most interesting.
Thanks, Leon. Good to hook up again. Yeah, please drop me an email. John has got my email address, and then we could hook up. But yeah, nice talking to you.